The old substation hums, a low thrum against the scent of ozone and stale coffee. Hand-labeled vinyl spins on the deck, reflecting the neon glow from a tube the color of a fresh bruise. Patched cables snake across the console, connecting this 1966 body to a 2036 skull. The air carries the faint tang of capacitor burn.
Black Star Pirate Radio.
Saragucucho checks in at 81 degrees and clear. Airflow is east-southeast at about 2 miles per hour. Our first signal tonight. The Privy Council in London is now weighing arguments on Trinidad and Tobago's colonial-era buggery law.
Indeed, Togee. This concerns the 1925 buggery law, a statute inherited from the British colonial era, which was subsequently integrated into Trinidad and Tobago's 1986 Sexual Offences Act. It criminalizes same-sex intimacy, with penalties potentially reaching 25 years imprisonment. The impact is profound on the LGBTQ+ community across both islands, where individuals face not just legal prosecution, but pervasive societal discrimination and fear. The original challenge was initiated by activist Jason Jones in 2017, arguing the law violates constitutional rights.
Lex unearths a deep historical scar. This isn't just an old text, it's a living colonial hand reaching across oceans, dictating intimate relationships for thousands in Trinidad and Tobago. It asserts distant external authority over personal consent, undermining a sovereign people's right to define their own civic morality and dignity. This buggery law is toxic residue, a narrative of imposed shame disguised as legal precedent.
This legal framework exemplifies a civic architecture built on external imposition, not internal consent. It actively obstructs the development of a resilient inner architecture for LGBTQ+ citizens, forcing them to navigate their lives under threat. We must dismantle these lingering colonial statutes and design systems where individual privacy for every citizen in Port of Spain or Scarborough is a non-negotiable foundation of dignity.
A direct path involves pursuing judicial overturn, which Jason Jones initiated. The Privy Council's decision, expected later this year, will be pivotal. One viable alternative might be a concerted legislative repeal campaign within Trinidad and Tobago itself, focusing on local lawmakers and building public consensus through education and advocacy. A concrete next move would be for local human rights organizations to intensify public awareness campaigns, detailing the real human cost of this law and advocating for a self-determined legal framework.
It's like trying to navigate a digital future with an analog map drawn by someone who never even saw a satellite. The absurdity of external dictation on internal consensual matters is a stark reminder of how historical power structures continue to warp contemporary realities. The signal here is the courage of those challenging this anachronism.
This moment is an opportunity for Trinidad and Tobago to assert absolute architectural sovereignty, to shed the last vestiges of an imposed framework and design a legal system where consent, provenance, and the inherent dignity of all its citizens are the foundational pillars. That is the true internal compass of a free nation.
Patching in a call auditor. You're on the signal.
So, old laws still run the show, even from another continent? Feels like we just inherit the same cracks instead of building something new for ourselves.
The transmitter pops once, adjusts, holds. Ozone drift. The signal is still here. The signal shifts. Prime Minister Narendra Modi received a stadium welcome in Sydney, Australia, while facing human rights protests.
That's right. Modi's third prime ministerial visit to Australia included a stadium event with over 20,000 attendees in Sydney's Kudos Bank Arena, highlighting strong diplomatic and cultural ties with segments of the Indian diaspora. Simultaneously, Amnesty International and other groups urged the Albanese government to address significant human rights concerns in India, citing issues like the crackdown on dissent, treatment of religious minorities, and specific events such as the 2020 Delhi riots. Who is affected? Indian minorities, dissidents, and human rights advocates, but also Australian citizens concerned about their nation's ethical standing on the global stage.
Modi's rock star reception, with cheers echoing through Sydney's Kudos Bank Arena, is a powerful cultural projection, a carefully constructed mythos of strength and unity. Yet, concurrently, activists outside are holding signs demanding accountability for the human cost of certain policies, a stark visual contrast that tests our ability to discern genuine civic health from manufactured spectacle. The cheering is one signal, but the silent protests are the architectural alarm.
Here, two civic architectures collide. The orchestrated diplomatic spectacle inside the arena, designed to project influence and foster economic ties, and the urgent, ground-level human rights protests outside, demanding accountability and dignity. A resilient society integrates dissent, treating it not as noise, but as a critical feedback loop, like a systems stress test. We must design pathways where these demands for justice become foundational, not merely tolerated, upholding human dignity across all public spaces.
The trade-off is between fostering lucrative diplomatic ties and holding leaders accountable for their nation's internal policies. One concrete move involves amplifying the counter-narrative, ensuring protest voices from groups like the Australian Greens are heard amidst official greetings. A viable alternative might be for the Australian government to directly link future economic agreements or diplomatic gestures to measurable human rights benchmarks, such as freedom of speech protections or independent investigations into alleged abuses, thereby demonstrating a commitment to ethical provenance.
It's like inviting a dragon to dinner and hoping it just eats the vegetables. Sometimes you have to acknowledge the fire. The dissonance between the celebratory rhetoric and the serious allegations creates confusion. Our role is to use clear analysis to separate the political performance from the actionable vectors of justice.
How can a sovereign nation like Australia maintain its internal compass, its values of human rights and rule of law, while engaging in complex international relations? It requires building a diplomatic architecture that prioritizes ethical provenance and consent in international engagement, not just economic gain. This strengthens both the national and global civic fabric.
Noise clarifies into signal. Donald, a small Victorian town, grapples with the alleged murder of 13-year-old Layla Jeffrey. Patching in a caller. Go ahead. Tja.
Hard to tell who's cheering for what when the optics are so polished. Just more noise.
Copy that, bringing it back to the main thread.
Layla Jeffrey, age 13, vanished on July 4th in Donald, a community of about 1,700 residents, located 280 kilometers from Melbourne. Her body was tragically found days later, leading to an alleged murder charge. This devastating event has plunged the town into deep grief, exposing the profound vulnerability of its close-knit residents when such an unthinkable act occurs. The primary affected groups are Layla's family and friends, the entire community of Donald, and by extension, other rural communities that often feel a sense of isolation and shared responsibility for their youth.
This tragedy rips through the fabric of small-town trust, exposing the profound vulnerability when an innocent life is stolen from a place like Donald. It's a cultural wound that demands collective healing, not just individual grief. The toxic residue is the fear and suspicion that can erode community bonds. The signal here is the urgent need to collectively grieve and rebuild trust, actively cultivating local networks of mutual care, visible in shared meals and neighborhood watches, to rebuild this fundamental civic architecture.
The sudden, violent loss of Layla Jeffrey reveals a critical structural vulnerability in community safety, especially in smaller, more isolated towns where informal networks are paramount. When the
immediate trade-off is between the community's desire for safety and the sudden, unpredictable nature of loss. A critical next move involves bolstering local information networks and ensuring accessible, clear support structures are visible, like immediate community alert systems and dedicated police liaison. One viable alternative could be establishing a community resilience plan that includes long-term, trauma-informed counseling services directly within the community hub, such as the local shire office or school, ensuring sustainable support beyond the initial crisis.
The quiet hum of a small town can mask underlying cracks, but when the music stops, the silence screams. This tragedy demands that we as a collective confront the uncomfortable truths about safety and vulnerability, not just in remote towns, but everywhere. It's a call to integrate emotion into our logic, moving from confusion to actionable vectors of care.
Systems like the Kismet Center in Washington Heights offer a model, vital social anchors fostering informal networks that respond quicker than formal systems, building a sense of collective provenance. This tragedy demands we look at the inner architecture of grief and the civic architecture of care. How do we build systems that favor dignity, not just in life, but also in collective mourning and rebuilding, ensuring every individual's inherent worth is structurally protected?
Lines open.
How do small towns heal when trust is broken and innocence is lost? When the blueprint for safety just vanishes?
By dissecting these moments, from the Privy Council's colonial echoes to the raw vulnerability in Donald, we've bent the standard news rules, not to break them, but to reveal stronger structural blueprints. The actionable signal is that your sovereign compass can navigate these complex architectures, even when the rules seem stacked.
Black Star Pirate Radio.
Continue the signal at TogeeVision.com. Tune in, Sparks and Stories, Gig Passport.